What is up, my Shadowverse soldiers, and welcome back to another Shadowverse Evolve video. Alright soldiers, so we are back with another Shadowverse Evolve video. So in this one, we're going to be doing another tournament report, and this time we're going to be looking at what happened in Australia. Alright, so before we get into this tournament report here, so I want to say I have had a couple conversations with the Australian community in the past. I think I played in the webcam locals when my sleep schedule was absolutely messed up. Definitely if you have the time and you are overnight and you're just coming home and you're able to play in a webcam tournament, that is actually a very good one to play in. Definitely love the vibes, and they welcomed me with open arms when I was playing around, so it was very fun to play with all of them. But if I'm correct, I'm pretty sure everybody knows each other in the Shapers forum, because they are a pretty tight play group, I'd say. Because I did feel, even though, they welcomed me, I did still feel like an outsider in terms of the information that they were talking about. And, this was some time ago, back when Seaside Memories was first getting released in JP, but 100% I did enjoy my time while I was there. All right, so getting into the pie chart breakdown here. So we already knew Swordcraft was going to be the heavy hitter for this set. Sets 14 and 15 was already going to prove that Festive and Thief Sword were really elite among the rest. And it looks like we have Runecraft. Well, usually second place would go to Abysscraft, but it seems Runecraft and Abysscraft are sitting at the same spot. But we have a bigger chart here for Uma, so it looks like Uma was very more popular in Australia. So wondering if there's going to be the control variant with 7 centimeters or aggro, that's kind of the bigger of the two. But if there's a third one, that I do remember seeing something about Loop Uma, I still don't know what that deck does, honestly. And I have not personally played against any of the Uma decks, but I know that, most of these decks can be beaten, nothing is tier 0. So everything's pretty fair. I'd say Swordcraft just had a bigger bit of a lead just because their deck comes on a bit faster. And on top of that, if you're milling your opponent's cards, they don't have access to those cards, but you also have access to them. So making sure those cards in your EX area are costing 2 less for Octress is just going to be pretty good. But getting back into the pie chart here. So initially, it was kind of we already knew Swordcraft was going to be first. Abyss was definitely going to be taking that second spot just because Departed was always just a pretty consistent deck to rely on. Runecraft has its niches, of course. We know Kuon was really good. If anyone else is taking anything else out there like Arcane Item Shop, then you're a madman, but at the same time you're goated because that deck is kind of real, but also very clunky. But we already knew Uma was going to be hanging around too, and then Forest had its aggro with Sekka and the Fairies Forest, and then Dragon you could be playing a lot. I think the Dragon decks are real. Don't get me wrong. I do not think every Dragon deck has legs. It's not like Arthurian that I talked about on stream the other day. That's a dead archetype running. But Dragon definitely has some legs, and it can definitely top if you were if the right pilot has the right cards, especially if you're playing something like Natura. I think Natura is very, very strong. So that's something you could look towards into playing Dragon. But of course, we do have next set where Dragon is going to be elite with 7 cost. So if you want to go ahead and start collecting your 7 cost stuff now, if you don't already have it. And then on top of that, you have the cards that are coming out in the Showdown decks, which is what we're going to be talking about next week. But yeah, a pretty diverse spread, I'd say. Of course, in the lower margin, we had Havencraft and Forestcraft, which usually, most of the time, these decks would be fighting for third place, either the Rune, Uma, if it wasn't already represented in second place like it is here. These are the decks that we'd probably be seeing go for third place, fighting for third place, if there's a huge majority of them. Of course, Haven and Dragon being outliers, I understand, but probably more of this dimension of Forest, Uma, and Rune. And of course, I can't forget that Kagero was also represented here with a little bit of 6%, so it looks like Kagero is still able to hang. Alright, so enough dilly-dallying, let's look at 427's Abysscraft deck. Now, what version of Abyss did they top with? Handless. Okay, Handless. So this deck really is proving to really be pretty good. Now, I'm not gonna say you had the goated run where you didn't see a certain matchup, because everybody can always, those naysayers will be oh well, you just dodge this matchup. If you top and you win, you manage to dodge this matchup, yeah, well, it happens. But I think this deck really, if it gets going, I'm not gonna say it's on the same level of Fairy Forest, but if it manages to hit its burn damage and you're managing to see your cards constantly and you're not really interacting, or if your opponent can't really match your like tempo, then you really are just going to run with the game. And I think this is one of those decks that can do that. And then on top of that, this deck just has answers. I think like the one thing is, hey, you're not going to have a hand, and you literally have the one card that's going to clear the board and actually get rid of your hand and then burn the opponent at the same time. So like a lot is happening here with this deck. But of course, I'm saying a lot is happening, but this is just a staple build for Handless Abyss. Congratulations to 427 for getting first place with Handless Abyss. This deck is proving to have some topping ability, which I was kind of doubting. I was honestly kind of doubting, but at the same time, there had to be more than just Departed Abyss, which I still seem to just like brush over every time we look at the breakdowns here. But yet again, congratulations to 427 for winning the entire event with Abysscraft Handless. All right, so moving on into second place, we have Chapper's Runecraft. Now, rubbing my hands together to figuring out what Runecraft deck this is, and it's looking like it's Spellchain, Kuon Mages, Kuon Mages. This looks like Spellchain, D-Shift Spellchain. That is probably what this is. This is definitely D-Shift Spellchain because this doesn't have the on Miyoji cards. Now rune players or spell weavers, whoever is using spells to have the tech for Thief Sword, this card is the go-to. You need the one. When I built my version on stream this past week, I made sure to include this card because I was put on to knowledge. Like, you have to know ball. If you're running like these big Kuons in your deck and your Kuons get milled, yeah, 100% you need to run this card. Powers Converged. It has multi uses, and I'm sorry I'm like clicking in and out of it, but being able to deal 4 damage to something, or being able to get a follower out of the cemetery so it can go for your big storm turn whenever you do go for this, or then giving your leader +4 defense for 3 play points is just very good. I managed to pick mine up, so I'm very excited to rock mine in my deck. But yeah, it just look like this is just Spellchain, like just filter. We're running the Misers to help with the rapid fires, and I really do like the Miser combo, even though the Dutiful Steed really just doesn't matter too much in this matchup, or just in this deck, the Dutiful Steed doesn't really do too much outside of making Miser just bigger. But you know, just being able to get the rapid fires out for Spellchain 5, since that is going to be very, very easy to do in this deck. Now, I actually am very curious as to how often Absolute Zero Blade actually did come up. Now, this is a very good card for Angelic Barrage, and especially, you know, just the Spellchain version of it, of giving it more damage as you keep going up the chain. So being able to do a total of 3 to the entire board is pretty good, especially if they're playing very low to the ground. Also, and another thing that I am noticing is the Slash of 1. So I wasn't really a big believer in this card. I was not a really big believer in this card, but if the card costs 4 or less, you just get to straight up remove it. So there's lots of cards that kind of like cheat out, like it's a 4 cost and then it's like a 5/5 in terms of stats. It's kind of weird to definitely handle, and especially when I don't want to say there's like not having Witch Bolt. Like, I'm not gonna say it's weird because you're not gonna be using too many evolved followers in this build unless you're using the 3 cost mage follower that, you know, puts the 3 cost spell into the EX area and it's free. But 100% Slash of 1, this is like a card. Like, the one thing that's scary about cards like this is that, of course, we're teching for the Powers Converge for Thief matchup for when our cards do get milled. But if they have a card like this like really does hurt us in terms of like removal, because they can just take our cards and just use them. But I mean, outside of that, they're not going to use our big game pieces because they're not going to hit the Spellchain. Like, there's no way they're hitting this. So they're going to be choosing cards for like removal or ways to just get out big cards. They're probably, I mean, if you're like really playing against Rune, like, of course, this is like a nutty play, don't get me wrong. But if you're playing Rune, you know, like, you got to do what you got to do. But of course, enough of me, like, you know, glazing up this deck. This deck is pretty nice. I'm glad that they went the route with Spellchain. On Miyoji sometimes can just break, but I do think on Miyoji is like just very consistent. Wondering why they wanted to choose this version of Spellchain over the on Miyoji Kuon. But yeah, congratulations to Chappers to getting second place with Runecrafts and Spellchain Runecraft nonetheless. Let us look at Guel, who played Cardfight Vanguard in third. All right, so looking at third place listing here, so this is probably Kagero. Because let's be honest, the only other deck would be Kagero. It's just gonna be Kagero. If it's card by Vanguard, it's gonna be Kagero. Kagero is just really good. The stat lines of these cards are insane. I had to be put on very probably latish into the Vanguard meta of like the potential that this card had, like post overflow turns. Yeah, this deck gets very nasty. Like, and it's like the fact that the deck's not ramping, it's just playing these cards that are having like weird stat lines, and then when you don't get to remove one card, it's like, oh yeah, you're about to eat a lot of damage. Yeah, of course, this is just a regular Kagero list with a couple, you know, like techs for ones in here, which is pretty nice. We have the Dragon Monk Gojo. I'm not sure if this card is ran in every build, but of course, you know, having like the one-up text for certain situations. And then of course you have the chain attack Sutherland, being able to give a follower extra 3 attack, especially when you're running big storm followers in this deck. Just very good for Kagero. Yeah, congratulations to 3rd place. Let's start and looking at 4th place with Maru playing Havencraft. All right, so looking at the Havencraft list here. So what version? Is it going to be Majoro? Is it going to be Storm Ward? And it is Storm Ward Haven. Yes. Okay. So this deck has legs. It can work. It can work. You just have to, you have to pilot. You have to work. You have to work for it. Of course, it's going to be feeling good to get lots of low to the ground damage, especially with Stalwart Featherfolk. And we've got 2-cost followers now that can just come out and swing at the same time too. And Wilbert, oh my gosh, the new Wilbert is just like so good. It's just so good. Just in terms of tempo, you get the ward, and then Ruby Falcon is going to be helping because every card in your deck is going to be ward, or if it has Storm 2, it's going to be swinging for extra. And then don't get me started if you manage to play the Grand Knight 2 in the very same, well, in terms with the very next turn, and you just have a whole board of wards. So of course, with the other decks that we're looking at, probably like, you know, Handless Abyss, where it might have a little bit of time like getting through to this monstrous like wall that you're going to be playing against. Like, this deck is real. This deck is very real. It just, you know, the matchups have to be very dependent because let's be honest, Haven is the bastard child. I will say it. Haven is definitely the bastard child. It has like good support, good cards, beautiful art, I'd say. Like, but you definitely have to work 10 times harder if you want to win with this deck. But of course, like I said earlier, and you know, it has to be a really good pilot, and it depends on what version of Haven you are playing. But Haven is toppable. It's not like it's impossible. Every deck can be beaten, and especially if you have a deck that has a giant wall attached to it. But congratulations to Maru with topping with Havencraft, getting top 4. You know, it's okay, you managed to bubble out at top 3. I know they have that little top 3. I wish they honestly did something for top 10 or top 16, top 15. I know more people need recognitions, especially if this list keeps getting bigger. But I know how support can get, especially with a game that's not super popular, which I wish had so much more love because I absolutely do love this game. All right, but moving on into 5th place. So we have Tin Tori playing Uma. And what version of Uma? It looks like it's aggro. We have aggro Uma. Oh, and this version actually has Special Week in it. Yeah, sorry, my mouse actually started bugging up. But we have Special Week in this deck. I absolutely love this card. I love Special Week. I know it might be super basic of me from season 1, but Special Week was absolutely amazing in season 1 of Uma. Like, just good wholesomeness. Like, absolutely love it. And this art is just, I mean, it just seems basic, but I really do like Special Week and how they represented her with this card. Like, it's pretty cool. But outside of that, I think this was pretty good in terms of tempo. It looks like every other aggro Uma deck. Still would like to be in, I'm still interested in like looking into picking up this deck, especially when set 16 comes out. I already have gotten my set 16 pre-order or splits or however, you know, everybody does stuff. I've already secured my set 16 stuff. So once Uma kind of like, I'm not gonna say vanishes, I'll definitely, you know, invest into it because the deck does seem fun. I can imagine the deck being fun because the last Uma deck was fun. But I'm seeing, getting back to the deck, of course, not staying too off track. So Narita Top Road, it seems like this card seems to be a bit of a staple, taking the fact that there's a lot of cards with Storm in the deck. So being able to deal the board like 5 damage is like good border wipe. So it seems like this is like the tech card to actually have some like good like board spam removal. But yeah, Tintori, congratulations for getting 5th place with Aggro Uma. Let us look at Kai P with 6th place with Swordcraft. All right, so looking at Kai P's deck here. So what version of Swordcraft we are looking at? And this is Thief Sword. So look, Planetary Fracture. So want to clarify, this card is good. This card is good. I don't care what you have to say about it. This card is good. Being able to like already mill your opponent out for the cards that they're not going to get, and then 100% if you manage to control the board, which you're going to be doing because you're going to be matching with aggression, you're going to be stopping cards. Like you're like, the Swordcraft deck is very popular, don't get me wrong. I don't think it's an auto win, but it has terms of bouncing back and like just being able to stabilize, because with the removal this deck has, with the terms of like being able to play aggressive, being able to stop your opponent from playing certain cards by having the RNG element. And of course, you know, it just comes down to the RNG sometimes, because some people just draw their next card and it's the card that they need to win the game, or you draw the card and it's the card that absolutely tells you that you need to scoop in. It was nice at your tournament run. But yeah, it just comes down to controlling the board and, you know, playing Shadowverse Evolve 100% in the match. Like, I don't believe Thief Sword is unbeatable. I don't believe any decks are tier 0. Now, when we finally get to a meta where there is something that's tier 0, I am very excited to see what the community is going to respond on how a deck is just wiping face. And that's kind of how I felt when Kagero hit the map, that it was just unbeatable, but Kagero was beatable. It was beatable. It wasn't anything that was unbeatable. I've yet to play against a Shadowverse Evolve deck where I could not take a game off of it. Or if it were, sometimes it might be the certain matchup of the deck that I might be playing, and of course, like with the power scaling, a deck is definitely going to, you know, not every deck's going to be played the same, and not every deck is going to feel the same in terms of power as well. So, you know, there are those games where you're playing casually and you're not playing the strongest deck in the world, so you definitely know you're going to lose, but you're just having fun with the game. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to go off on a little tangent there, but congratulations, Kai P, for getting 6th place with Swordcraft Thief Sword nonetheless, which I'm surprised that I'm not actually seeing in top 3 or top 4, because every other list I believe that we looked at had like at least Sword, at least in top 3, at least like 1. But, you know, at least like 2 in top 8, that's not bad either. But speaking of top 8, let's look at our 7th place with Jason's playing Swordcraft. All right, so looking at the version that Jason is playing, so is this Festive, is this Thief, is this the Outlier? This is Thief Sword. With Surefire Bullet, we have Surefire Bullet. Oh, we have a combination of cards, okay. This looks interesting. So we have Surefire Bullet and Princess Strike in the deck. So those are some interesting techs, I'd say. Probably they were most definitely scared of, or I wouldn't say scared, definitely needing an answer for evolved followers and quick timing, and definitely trying to go for the disrupt. Very interested in the Princess Strike here. So did they need the one of like snipe for certain situations? And I mean, that would be probably, you play Not and then Not would get Princess Strike and put it into the EX area. I think that would be like the only thing, but you would still need the Mistalina to do 6 damage. So I wonder if like boxing a follower and then just getting your Princess Strike out into your EX area. I mean, of course, there's lots of other 1-cost cards you can choose, right? But of course you want to see your one of that you're only including in your deck. I don't know. That's my play lines that I'm thinking. If I'm wrong, of course, please correct me in the comments. I would love to have a conversation with you all about how this deck might have like played. You know, if you played this deck, I hope you find the video. You know, we're recognizing you for topping with this amazing Swordcraft deck. But yeah, shout out to Jason for getting 7th place with Thief Sword as well, with a pretty interesting build. We're gonna move on to Ireton, who played Uma and got in 8th place. All right, so yeah, I do want to apologize if I did mispronounce that. So we have Uma, and what version of Uma? We have Aggro Uma here, and this version actually has the Will to Overtake. I absolutely love this card. Being able to look at the top 3 and figuring out what cards that you're going to be running into, especially if there are cards that just straight up just allow you to draw a card for 1, which are a lot of Uma cards that we're going to be seeing. Well, not for 1, but most of the cards are going to be 3 or less that we are playing. So, you know, we're going to be playing low to the ground. So the cards that we're going to be playing are hopefully going to be drawing a card to allow us to either like replace itself or filter our hand out. But yeah, congratulations to Aruyton for getting 8th place with Aggro Uma. Every time I see an Uma deck, it makes me want to invest in it even like more. But you know, we'll wait, we'll be patient. I'm very excited to play the deck very, very late, but I'm gonna all at the same time still enjoy playing a Uma deck. All right, so moving on into 9th place, we have Double OC with Abysscraft. Now, what version of Abysscraft we are going to be looking at, and sorry if I mispronounced that, but we do have Departed here. And this actually has a Rule and Eye package in it. I actually do love Rule and Eye with the Thunder and Roar, and then Sonata of Silence, just being able to hand control your opponent. It just devastating to be losing random cards out of your hand, especially if they're key pieces. Because if you're not Rune, you're not going to be having too many cards in your hand. Like if you're not rocking the Angel's Blessing in your deck, you're not going to be plussing. Like you're going to be kind of like plus one, maybe plus 2 if your deck really has like the gas, you know. But most decks kind of just run off an engine if either you're going to be holding 4 cards in your hand, 3, or like 7, you know, there's like those 2. But yeah, big congratulations for topping with Departed Abyss. Like this deck is pretty solid, pretty consistent. I see that we're still running Oh the Great World, very good late game card. I mean, outside of Gremory, I just feel like, you know, all these cards are just like the same from a couple sets ago. Well, outside of the one of Uma, of course, card that we have, which is very good in terms of tempo. But if I haven't said it already, I really do like the Blaster Dart and the Vanguard engine for Abyss, the Shadow Paladins. Very, very good in terms of milling, hitting that neck recharge with like very fast gas, and that's definitely what the deck wants to do. So Blaster Dark is definitely like a good 3-drop to bury the top 2 cards and then evolve and then take care of 2 followers if you need to. But yeah, congratulations Double OC with 9th place with Abysscraft. Let's figure out our last deck. We have Yo Fuzzy 3 on Havencraft. All right, looking at Yo Fuzzy here on 10th place, our final deck, last but not least in our hearts. So we have, is this Storm? Oh, Majuro Wasteland. Look at that. Yes, Sugar Kiss Assassin recovering 2 play points, and we're going for those big Majuro plays, baby. We like that. Now the deck has, I think the deck has potential to like play at all points of the game. Like you have the big Majuro plays from when you do play for tempo, but we have stall with Alice, we have Storm with Dark John, we have some wards in the deck too to like help stall out, and then Havenfire, just good removal tool for 2. Like just lots of things that we have going for the Wasteland deck. And this deck, I'm pretty sure this deck gets better next set. Well, not saying it's not bad or anything, but this deck gets even better next set when we get more Haven tools. Yeah, this deck is pretty solid. The one thing I do dislike about this deck is just in terms of like obtaining the cards. Like getting your Alice, if you don't already have your Alices, this is going to be a pretty hard card to like kind of obtain, especially getting a playset. And unless you getting them all from the one person, it's probably going to be like the toughy part. But you can get access to getting 3. It's just going to be a little bit of an arm and a leg in terms of like being able to obtain them. And I'd say the price, personally, the price for 3 of these cards isn't really beginner friendly. And at the same time, is Havencraft really beginner friendly? Like I think there are decks that are coded to being beginner friendly, like Dragon, that's kind of like straightforward. And of course, Abyss is pretty straightforward too. I think Sword is really straightforward. Sword is very, very straightforward. So like definitely would recommend Sword or Dragon. And I think those were the 2 decks that actually did get the starter deck for Worlds Beyond before. So like, you know, that's definitely saying something. Those straightforward decks are just a little easier to play. And with cards that are like neutrals like Alice, which are very harder to obtain for like new players. But who knows, you know, if you really want to, you can just all in on the deck and really like it. Or and that's the other thing, like trying out these decks, and if you don't know if you like them or not, that's why I'm thankful for TCG Arena and Untap and stuff like that, the web client. If you don't know about that, I will happily drop a link to all those sources below. I want to be the good hub for Shadowverse Evolve. If you don't know about the spreadsheet, if you don't know about the like deck logs and stuff like that, I will be happily to share that information so we can all be on the same page. But yeah, congratulations to Yo Fuzzy for getting 10th place with Havencraft. I did, however, before we close out, I did see a lot of familiar names that we see, like Jason Derulo. I remember seeing that name all the time in the Discord. Halcyon, I'm pretty sure I've seen this name too. Lots of names that I saw in the actual Australian Discord for Shadowverse Evolve that are people who just like, oh, Sleepy, there we go, Sleepycraft. I'm pretty sure it's like one of the main mods in there. Definitely know that Sleepy was very, very cool to talk to. 100% love the Australian community too. You guys are amazing. Thank you for supporting the game. And yet again, thank you for the coverage too, for actually taking pictures of the winners in like 3rd place. Wish we got everybody that was able to get top 8 and get the mats. I don't know if this actually did qualify for the mats or anything, but having a group picture still would have been cool. But yeah, soldiers, that is all that I wanted to talk about for the tournament report. Congratulations to everyone who did a really good job for topping top 3. Congratulations. I hope everybody is safe in whatever they do tonight, and safe whatever you do for the rest of the year. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.
Yeah. TRINN. Just to get you away. What I got to do. What I got to do. Just to get you away. What I got to do. What I got to do. Just to get you away. You pull me too close.